Hello, this is Mary Sutherland, and I want to present the first show of a series that I'll be doing, interviewing various guests through Skype. Now, with this Skype, I can interview a guest, but it's also set up that when I'm doing a show, you guys can actually call in, and I can record that as well. So as I can learn how to use this, the more we can add on to this program. Right now, I Skyped, but I was able to get a video of the of what I did through Skype. But when I try to run the video through the Windows Movie Maker, it doesn't want to record. So the camcorder doesn't want to record. So still having a little issue there. But anyhow, let's just give this a we'll test this one out, see how it works, and then we'll just continue until we get good at it, huh? So bear with me. This interview is with Roger Simon, and he's been one of my radio listeners for, gosh, I think 15 years. So anyhow, I figured that would be a great way to start this new series out, is with some of my listeners from BUFO Radio. So, Mary Sutherland with Roger Simon. Thank you. Roger Simon and I are speaking about what I had discussed earlier on Facebook, and this is the strange sounds in the sky. And I was telling Roger that we heard these sounds in Wisconsin, in a town I should say in the skies over Clinton, Wisconsin. That was several years back. Now we've got the sounds back. Roger had some interesting points as well as I, so I thought maybe what we would do is discuss that for right now. Roger, what do you think that these sounds coming from the sky are all about?
Well, I kind of think that maybe some of these parallel universes might be bumping up against one another, or something's happening and we're not seeing it, but the sound's got to be coming from somewhere. And I've also been told that the interaction between these various dimensions is quantum in nature, and sound can travel through the various dimensions. It's not impeded by that. So it
Well,
can be coming from anywhere, say.
yeah, it could. Someone had thought that maybe it was the plates from Earth grinding back and forth and creating that sound, and then it bounces into the sky, and from there it bounces back. And we've also had people, thinking that it was the sounds of the hum of UFOs, in a stealth mode where we don't see them, but we're hearing them. And then, of course, if you go, into more of the extreme, with the Christians, they're speaking of revelations and the sounds of the trumpets. But these sounds, Roger, are being heard all around the world right now again.
Yeah, well, I had an OBE when I was out in that OBE. I was in my apartment in the hallway, and it sounded like the toilet was running, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to fix that toilet, and then when I wake up, the sound's gone, and that sound sounded exactly like they had the sounds in the sky, like they were resounding or something, or they were echoing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's some kind of connection there.
Well, you may have a point, because when I've had OBEs, I get that like cracking sound in my ear, or like maybe like taking two hands in like this, you know, real,
Yeah,
you take your two hands, you slap them together, and that crack sound, that's
but
what
that
I get
that
when I, shift into another dimension.
that's the sound you get when you make the initial shift. But I was already out, see,
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
and it kind of reminded me of the sounds that people had played on the internet, and they said, "What are these sounds?" And it sounds like running water. You know how a leaky toilet just runs,
Right, right.
and it kind of reminded me of those sounds. So I don't know if there's a connection there or not. And someone told me that maybe perhaps what you're doing is you're crossing over into another dimension, and when you cross over, you hear those sounds. But I was already out, those things.
Huh.
So I don't know if there's any connection there or not.
Well, now we do know that, different dimensions have different sounds. Like the Earth, I think, what is it, G flat? A three-dimensional Earth is like a G flat. And that sound that's coming from the sky sounds to me like a G flat, but I'm not sure. But, we know that the Earth has one particular sound, and then each dimension is supposed to have its own frequency of sound. Like where one dimension will be like the tinkle of bells, and another one will be like a hum. And in your case, you've heard what well, we get ringing in the ears. That's another, the ringing sound. That's another. But
Yeah, I just thought there might be some connection because the two sounds sounded somewhat similar.
the connection with the water running.
Yeah, the water running. Yeah.
Well, see, what I'm hearing on YouTube is that well, the one I heard was it almost sounded like that G flat, which it didn't sound like water running. I guess it kind of depends on where you're at, because there was another person that was recording it, and his sounded like strong wind, like a wailing sound coming through.
Oh
And there
yeah,
was
when I
no
had that
wind.
particular uh, thing where I was out of my body, and I was in a dream, but I thought it was a dream, and
Uh-huh.
then when I came to, I woke up,
Yeah.
and I was moving my arms and leg. Wind rushed through my apartment, and I couldn't figure out what the heck that was because my apartment was all sealed up and it was wintertime.
Right.
And then it just settled down, and when it rushed through, you know how when the wind gusts, it knocks things about.
Right.
So that's exactly what it sounded like. And I was told the reason I had done that was I had come back through the dimensions, and that's how they sealed one another up.
Yeah.
So that's why you hear that, yeah.
Yeah, and I can personally vouch for that, Roger, because I've experienced the same thing. I was it was down in Apache Junction. Superstitions are known for vortex areas too, and I was down in Apache Junction, Arizona, and I woke up to the wind blowing because my bed was like right underneath the window. The head of the bed was right tight to this window, and I had the window open. And I woke up to this sound of like a freight train coming through my bedroom window, and the curtains were being blown so hard that the curtains were being pushed straight out. Just like a strong wind was coming through.
Yeah.
And just as I sat up, because it's almost like all happening at the same moment. But just as I sat up, everything went dead quiet.
Yeah,
And it was like, what the heck just happened? And I was feeling a pain in my hand, like my fingernails was holding on to something, or my fingers were holding on to something so tight that the fingernails were actually cutting into my hand. And I opened up my hand, and I had a little white stone in there.
Oh.
And that stone had a vein of gold in it and a vein of silver. And instantly I had this vision. It says, at least you not forget where you were. And then it showed me the vision of me being in the Hall of Learning. And then after that, it was all done. And I looked outdoors. That night was just as, there was absolutely no breeze whatsoever going on out there in that Arizona desert. And, so what happened to you, I can personally vouch that does happen when the soul comes back, is that you have that sound of that, like a freight train or a strong with wind coming. I did not know that we both had experienced the same thing until just now, Roger.
Yeah, I thought I was on a tropical island when I heard it. And in that dream, Mary, it was kind of a dream, but I didn't know if it was a dream.
Yeah.
So I touched this entity in the boat, and she let out quite a roar.
Yeah.
And it shocked me, and that's what woke me up. And the thing was, I think this individual was a Hathor. And what is so curious about this particular dream? What is so curious about this particular dream that was kind of a dream?
Yeah.
Is I was in one of those boats that you see in the pyramids,
Yeah.
So I thought that was really odd too. Why would I be in a boat like that? And I guess she wanted to take me across some kind of river, and I was told if I went across her, I might not come back. So that's why I panicked and got out of there. See?
Well, it could have been, a lot of times the dreams are symbolic too. It could have been that she was using the symbolism for so that you could understand it.
Yeah.
Because Osiris used that particular type of boat to cross over. Or you said it was Hathor. Hathor is Egyptian,
Yeah, remember the Hathors that used to show up during the Egyptian times? They would
right?
just show up and they disappear.
Right.
Those are the things I'm talking about. They're real angelic. You have to research them on the internet, but they're real angelic beings, and I guess they're a super ancient race, and they use portals to get around.
Now, isn't there a place in Egypt called the Temple of Hathor?
Yeah, that's the ones they're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, and so you say that they're very well. I think that the main pyramid was the Great Pyramid was used for dimensional travel.
yeah. Well, the Hathors were revered back then, and these beings would just show up out of nowhere, and they bring wisdom or knowledge to the humans back then, and then they disappear. And this is supposedly just a myth or a legend, but I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I do too. The Hathors are represented by the cat people. Am I correct in that? My thinking there?
I think that might be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Which,
if you saw one, you could see by their face that they're real peaceful, and the giveaway is their ears. They kind of look like cow ears,
yeah.
and I think that's how people from India got the idea that the cows were so sacred because they kind of associate the two. Say,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's kind of
I
funny.
was,
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm thinking, like, well, you got your elves too, that's got those pointed ears, you know.
hmm
Well, of course, well, my son's got pointed ears, so, so I guess we can't really go too much with a pointed ear, but I know what you're talking about because I know that the Hathor's got the bigger pointed cow's ears, yeah. And you could be right on that. India at that point, that would have been Brahmin, right?
yeah, a long time
In
ago. Yeah.
ancient India, yeah. And so there's your Brahma connection. And I
Okay.
did.
Now, have you heard about the recent passing of Sylvia Brown?
Yeah, what happened there?
I guess I think she died of a heart attack, but I'm not quite sure. But the reason I brought it up is I want to tell you my story about Sylvia Brown.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Well, I was watching Montel at home here in Nebraska, and she was on TV, and Montel asked Sylvia, says, "Is that remember that Terry Schiavo individual?" I guess Montel asked Sylvia whether she was going to make it or not, And then Sylvia Brown started talking, and she said, "Oh, you're not going to believe this," but she started talking about aliens coming in and fixing her up and time travel, and then she started using choice words because I was kind of, using those words. Then I started talking to her, from there to there, telepathically, and
Right.
I couldn't believe it. She was right on with everything she said, and you have to see that to believe it. And that's where she found out that dolphins and cetaceans are telepathic. But that
Oh
all
yeah.
happened on TV, and I was sitting in my home. I had never met her, and yet she did all that just on TV on the Montel show.
Well, she was quite popular on the Montel show. It's strange, but once they never I don't did they ever go public with what she died from, or are people just assuming
I think
that it was a heart
if you go
attack?
to her website, I think they said she died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, she the, her writings have launched many of us truth seeker. You
yeah,
know, there's a lot of things I don't agree with as far as Sylvia Brown goes, but I will give her credit for getting getting a lot of people started, on their path. You know.
Well, the gift she gave me, because back in that particular time, I was just kind of coming around to what my awareness with the ETs, and by what she talked about and what she said, it just propelled me further because there's no way she could have known any of that. I never met her, and she was clear in New York or wherever they were taping that, and I was back home. How could she have known any of that stuff? So, and a lot of people think that she's somewhat of a fraud or a phony, but I don't think so because she was on George Norrie's show once, and I guess she kind of wavered back and forth. But I think that was just her ego getting in the way and trying to be a perfectionist and something you can't be perfect at.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I've also noticed about psychics. You can have five psychics in a room, and each psychic is going to see something just a little bit different than the other psychic. They'll pick up one will pick up certain information, one piece of information. Another psychic will pick up another piece of information. And a lot of people think to themselves, well, this one psychic told me this one thing, but then the other psychic never even mentioned it and told me something else. So then they don't believe in the psychics,
Yeah.
because they're thinking that all psychics are going to see the same thing. Not true.
Yeah. Well, the thing was with this particular individual, I had offered these beings to repeat this lifetime, and if they would repair this individual, which I know they could because they did this to me one time. And that's what Sylvia was discussing. She was hearing it in her ear, and Montel was kind of talking. He said all this stuff, and he's kind of disturbing her. And then she said a couple of things on TV that a word you probably shouldn't say, and she forgot she's on TV.
Yeah.
And then she began talking about time travel. There's no way in hell she could have known I had those time travel experiences,
Yeah.
There's no way.
Well,
so she was for real,
So you think that the only way she would have known it, then you're saying, is because she actually experienced it herself, right?
Well, because she was psychic and she was getting the information from somewhere because I had never met her. And I was clearly in Nebraska and she was way out in New York where they were having the show.
Right. And you were the only one you thought that had that information?
Well, the thing was, I started talking to her telepathically from there, and then she started picking things up.
So she was picking up your thoughts.
Yeah,
she was
and then she's probably said a few words on TV she shouldn't say, and Montel yelled at her.
Oh, I get you. Well,
Yeah.
that's very, very possible.
Yeah.
Very possible. I remember one time when the war broke out in Iraq. I had, which was half a world away from us, and I remember vacuuming one day, and all of a sudden I just dropped to my knees because I felt I felt this woman. She had reached down to pick up her child that had just stepped on a bomb and was killed, and she reached down to pick him up and hold her in her arms, and she screamed. And just as she did that, I picked that up here in Wisconsin and felt all that pain, that anguish, everything. And it was just for an instant. But after that, I was dead. I turned against war.
Yeah. But somebody had told me when I went and visited another store that I was kind of telepathic, and I thought, well, this is just nonsense until after that experience. And then for a while I had fun with it. I go into restaurants, and how they have little kids there? I kind of toy with them in my mind, and they turn around and look at me real strange. And then I thought, well, I don't really want this ability, because if people can think what you want if you're looking at them, you don't need this. So I had told these beings that this wasn't such a good idea because I didn't know how to control this. So I had woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning one day, and they were running something across my forehead where my third eye is.
Right.
And I knew what they were doing, and then I finally opened my eyes, and they all disappeared. And staring right at me was how would you put it? I thought it was a medical instrument.
Right.
And what it was it was gray. My whole room was gray, and instead of being black, the room was gray, and this thing was gray, and it was like a little circle, and then bigger circles, and it fanned out into a cone.
Right.
And I found out later that this is what a portal looks like.
Right.
And and at the time I looked at it, I thought it was some kind of medical device because of what had just happened. So these are what portals look like. Right.
Well, we filmed a lot of portals, since I've been doing this type of work, and I agree with you on that. Those portals, they're all over. They're in space and they're on Earth. I think that all these sacred sites, these temples and pyramids and all that, they're basically, every one of them are set on these portal areas as markers so that they can find them later.
And the funny thing is, what most people don't understand is you don't actually have to go to any of these sites to experience any of these portals.
Right.
You can, right in your living room, you can draw any portal in the universe to yourself and access it. You don't have to go anywhere. Human beings have this ability, but people have forgotten it.
Yeah, that's when I do these tours up in the woods. I tell the people, I say, all you have to do is, you don't have to be here all the time to experience this vortex. All you have to do is when you get home, you could be on the other side of the world, you can be in India, you can be in England, it doesn't make any difference. And all you have to do is sit down and think about it, and energy follows thought. And I says you'll be right there where that vortex is, and you can get just as much out of it as if you were there. Because once it's got your signal and you've got its signal, then you have that you're bound to it. There's that like an invisible cord, an energy cord, that you can use like a telephone line. You can contact back and forth.
And somebody set me straight. It's not that you can just generate a portal and go anywhere. In other words, you have to draw the particular portal to you there that you want to go, because different portals lead to different positions and different places in the universe. And I think what's going on here is when we travel the universe and we leave the Earth, there's like an interstate system of different interdimensional doorways and portals that you have to go through. This is the way it really is. And the thing is, each one of these realms or doorways is guarded by a being that people don't understand, and you have to have their permission to access it. Otherwise, they will not let you go through.
And Enoch, the Book of Enoch, speaks of those guardians.
Yeah, it's true, yeah. And also, when you start leaving the Earth and you start going through these portals, you make sure you have a guide, because I was told that if you don't, you go through some of these portals can be extremely dangerous and you'll never return.
That's right. That's right. That's wise advice.
So I think when you first start doing this, what you do is you go to different planes of reality on the Earth, and then once you move beyond that, then you move out into the cosmos, and this is how you travel the cosmos. And I think this is how our ancestors did it, and this is how we're going to do it. That's why I think NASA's somewhat silly for doing the things they're doing. It's just a distraction, So.
Well, same way with SETI. But the Toltecs used to do it.
Yeah.
This is the way we're going to do it too, yeah. The Toltecs were known for creating these dimensional doorways. And Brad actually got a photo of one of those doorways that was created by, an ancient one. Because there was two different types of portals. There was the natural portals, and then there was other portals that the wizards were able, the white wizards or the white magicians and the dark or black magicians could make. And if it was, and what they would do is after they created the portal, they would take like a signature of their face and imprint it on that doorway of that portal. So it was an actual imprint of their face, so that as the other magicians or wizards would go through, they would know that particular portal was resonating with that particular wizard or magician. And, so they wouldn't disturb it.
I see. Yeah. Well, I've had many experiences where I've been sleeping at night and all of a sudden it will turn just pitch black, where you can't see a darn thing.
Yeah.
And one of these times I finally got up the courage, well, I'm just going to get out of bed and walk around. So I tried to do it once, and as soon as I tried to get up and walk out of bed, something invisible just grabbed me and pinned me to the bed and restrained me. And then I opened my eyes, and I was back in my original reality. So I'm thinking, what if I would have walked out of this darkness into the lightness, it wouldn't have been good, because this Native American girl that has contact with the Arcturians, she told me that when you do this kind of stuff, you don't go into the light, because remember what happened to the people in the Philadelphia experiment?
Right.
They went into hyperspace and they went in the light and they came back crazy.
I've heard that.
So she told me what you have to do when you go into hyperspace is you have to go into the void of the dark, and this acts as a shield. and it protects you from these other energies because our bodies are energy devices. Otherwise, you'll get exposed to all kinds of energies and you won't be able to handle it. You'll fry your circuitry. You come back crazy. So this darkness acts as a shield, and when you get to where you want to go in hyperspace, then the door just opens up and you come out, and that's how it's done. But you have to go into the darkness to do this, because if you go into the lightness in the physical body, your body cannot take these energies.
Well, I don't know. I know that that white stone that I had, apparently what that was a grounding stone for, and apparently travelers use those grounding stones so that they can get from one dimension to another. Somehow it keeps you balanced or something, where, so I don't know exactly how it works, tell you the truth, but I do know that there are such things as these grounding stones. And I don't know, I don't know, Roger, I guess it's, I guess the safest way to do it is call upon your guardian angels, or your guardians, to go with you, because to me, I don't know if a portal of light would be different than a portal of darkness or not. I'd hate to base everything on one person, what one person told me, like your Native American friend.
Yeah, but she really knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
If you knew her, you would know. But anyhow, the thing is, when you go into hyperspace, you have to protect yourself.
You
Just
do.
don't.
You do.
Otherwise, you'll go, too many energies and you can't sustain it. So.
There's a guy by the name of Preston Dennett. He's out of California. And, yourself, I've done a couple, well, I think I've done 3 or 4 different shows with him. But he's done thousands of out-of-body, travels. He's actually got a book out, what is it, Out-of-Body Traveling for Dummies?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's had some fascinating experiences traveling.
Well, Mary, you're confusing it here. I think the difference is when I'm doing this, I'm not going outside of my body. This is the physical body traveling.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
See, if you go in spirit, you don't have a problem, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but when you go in the physical body and you go into these higher dimensions, your physical body cannot take these energies.
Right. Oh, I totally understand now.
And that's why those guys came back crazy in the Philadelphia experiment, the ones that didn't get embedded and die,
Yeah, you're right. Okay,
so
I understand what you're
that's why you have to
talking
go in the darkness if you go in a physical body,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our 30 minutes is just about up, and I think that's about that's a limit that we have in order to get this show up. But if you want, what we can do is do another show later. Okay?
Okay, yeah, that'd be good, yeah.
But anyhow, it was nice talking to you, Roger, and maybe we can work something out where we can visit back and forth with a regular show together. Maybe a weekly show or something like that. Weekly half-an-hour show.
Yeah, I hope I didn't do too bad,
Well, you did great. You did as good as me. So, I mean, what the heck. And there's always such a thing as editing. I always promise my guests that I'll edit, but I never do.
Yeah, part of the problem is, Mary, I've got so much information, I just don't know where to start.
Well, that's how come I think that it would be good to have a weekly show with you, Roger. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to put this up on YouTube so that we can share it there too, as well as Facebook. And maybe on my site as well. Okay, thank you, Roger.
Bye.